Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. Just before we get started, any likes and subscribes, any support, greatly appreciated. And let's get into it. So what we've got today is just a wildcard video heading into game week 4. So we're just going to look at a few different teams of who to target, who to avoid, and then I'm going to put together a bit of a team that might help you if you're thinking of wildcard at this point in the season. So looking at the teams that we want to target, first of all, we've got Liverpool and Man City. Now, obviously, they are, you don't need to be a FPL expert to know that Man City and Liverpool are probably good teams to target moving forward. I know Liverpool haven't got off to the best start, but they're still a quality team that are going to be there and thereabouts at the end of the season. And I think they're so highly owned, a lot of these players, that you want to have them involved in your team regardless. Same for Man City, off to a bit of a better start. I think you'd be wise to just put in a couple of Man City players with, especially with those fixtures moving forward. So the next team we've got is Arsenal, one of the form teams at the start of the season, but yet to be really pushed. They've had some quite straightforward fixtures, and obviously they've handled them well, which is good signs. But it'd be interesting to see how they do against some big hitters. Got the potential to have that experience against Man United in a couple of weeks. But I would say the fixtures immediately, other than that, are looking pretty good. I think from a defensive point of view and an attacking point of view, there's the potential for lots of points. I know there's a couple of fixtures at the end of this stretch with Spurs and Liverpool, but I think if Arsenal are the real deal, they're going to need to have those tests and come through them anyway. So it'd be interesting at the very least to see how they get on with those. The next two teams we're going to look at are going to be Brighton and Brentford. Now, they've started the season really solidly. I thought Brentford, especially, were unlucky yesterday to lose to Fulham. They had, some goals ruled out and lots of chances, and they looked pretty good. Same with Brighton, they've got off to a solid start. And for both these teams, I think the fixtures, if you're looking at getting players in on a wild card, there's quite a lot of cheaper differential players, enablers that will help you get other big hitters in your team from these teams in particular. And I think with those fixtures combined with the players you could get, make them really good options. So now we're on to teams to avoid. Now we're going to start with Fulham. I know they had a great result yesterday, but that game against Brentford could have really gone either way, and those fixtures moving forward don't look ideal at all. A lot of people want to jump on the Mitrovic bandwagon, and I've been a big pusher of Mitrovic, but I don't think this is the right time to get him in. I think if he can get through these next 4 game weeks and maybe he gets a couple of goals in those, then I think he'd probably be a must-have. But I think, don't treat it as an experiment in the next few weeks. Let someone else get Mitrovic in and take that risk against those big teams. And you can watch from afar and maybe get him in later. The next team we've got are Aston Villa, who, to be honest, have also started pretty inconsistently, and those fixtures moving forward don't look great. I think people started with Bailey in their teams. I had him at the start of last season and made that mistake, so I didn't put him in this season, and I was thinking I'd avoid him anyway, and so it's proved so far. He got an assist yesterday, but other than that, he's not really even played, and those minutes are going to be inconsistent moving forward, even if they did have some good fixtures. I think defensively as well for Villa, those fixtures aren't looking great, and they've not really done very well in defence so far this season, and I don't see why they'd be getting any points there anytime soon. Next team we've had are Wolves, and they've not started the season very well. You could argue that the immediate fixtures are reasonable. So if you have got someone like Neto, then you can get it. You could maybe keep him, but I wouldn't necessarily be wildcarding to get some Wolves players in. I think you also have to look beyond the next 3 fixtures if you're wildcarding into a more mid to long term, and those fixtures don't look great combined with their early season form. Now, the next team we've got on this list are Nottingham Forest, and I know they've had a couple of good fixtures, good results, but they've not looked convincing, and it could have really have gone either way in the win against West Ham or the draw yesterday. And I just think, they could be a bit of a trap. I think the only reason you get Nottingham Forest in, I think, would be to get some, Henderson or Nico Williams, who are 4.5 and 4 million pounds of your budget, to enable you to get more expensive players in, and then you rotate them when the fixtures aren't looking great, like they are the next couple of weeks. I think they've got a nice stretch in there, but I wouldn't necessarily, get them in with the intention of starting them every week. Maybe they could be a bench player that you would rotate in every so often. And the final team is Crystal Palace, and I think a lot of people, just like Mitrovic, are going to start jumping on the Zaha bandwagon. I'm not a fan, to be honest. I think again it could be a bit of a trap. I think Zaha's struggled to score consistently over the seasons, and he does kind of score in bunches. So whether he could get some more goals immediately, it remains to be seen. But I think in terms of a wild card, he's going to be that player you'd get in, and in a couple of weeks he won't have scored, and you'll be thinking, oh, was it worth it? He's 7 mil. And, I think you'd be looking to move off him, especially with that Man City game. And they've also got Man United and Chelsea dotted in there. Newcastle have started the season really well. Palace are a good team, so I'm not saying there's not value in there, but I wouldn't necessarily get them in on a wildcard team, especially at a price range of Zaha at 7 or 7.5 million. There are lots of other players you could get in alternatively around that price point. So looking at the team and what we've got here, we're going to start in goal with Sanchez. Like we said before, Brighton have good fixtures and are pretty solid defensively, and he will also get you some save points and the occasional bonus point as well. Moving into the defence, and we're starting with Trent. People are really quick to get off Trent and Robertson. I'm not really buying the panic, to be honest. I think the quality players, and I also think if you look at the price point of 7 million or 7.5 million, show me a midfielder of that price that's going to score as consistently as they are. And I know you're looking at someone like Martinelli, probably, who we actually have in the midfield here. But Trent and Robertson have shown it over season, not just at the start of one season in 3 game weeks. And I think the points are going to average out. I don't see the need to transfer them out at that price point, especially. It's not like it's a 12, 11 million pound player that's taking up most of your budget. The actual pricings are very reasonable. And Liverpool have proved over the seasons they can get clean sheets as well. So I would still get someone like Trent in. I actually think he's playing very well as well. Looking at Ben White, I think he's been playing at right back for Arsenal, and he's obviously a rotation risk, but you could say that for a lot of Arsenal players. And he's only 4.5 million. He looked very attacking yesterday, powering down the right, and was actually unlucky not to get an assist. Really, his cross came in for Jesus, who miscontrolled it, and I think it fell to Odegaard for the second goal. And Jesus actually got the assist for that, even though it was a miscontrol. But it was a great run and cross from Ben White down the right hand side, getting to the byline that created the chance in the first place. So I would say, especially with Arsenal's fixtures, you need an Arsenal defender. Why not go for Ben White? He's cheap enough, and it will help you get other players in. Looking at Cancelo, speaks for itself. I think a Man City defender is obvious. Cancelo is the most attacking, and just like we said with Trent, with the pricing, he's 7 million. I think he's 7.1 now. I would still get him in. I think with the price rises, what we're going to talk about is, don't be put off by price rises when you're wildcarding. If you've missed a price increase, that's just how it is, and that's how the season works. What I would say is try and look at it like you are buying that player at that price. So imagine Cancelo was 7.1 million at the start of the season. Would you still get him in? Yeah, you would. Don't get too hung up on missing out on the occasional price rise or price drop. I think, to treat it just like what we've said is the right way to do it. And I think players are always going to go up and down in price, and you can't be sort of, held to ransom with the odd 1.1 million, that doesn't really impact your budget that much at this stage of the season. Rounding out the defence, we've got Rico Henry. He's got an assist already in his first 3 game weeks, and we've said before with Brentford's fixtures, they're looking fantastic. They're actually playing really well as well, and like we said, they were unlucky not to get anything against Fulham yesterday. Moving into the midfield, so we're starting with Martinelli. I know we spoke earlier, but he is a great asset at 6.3 million. Like we said, if you have missed out on that price rise, look at him for what he is. He's 6.3 million. Would you get him in if he started at that price and he hadn't moved yet? Absolutely. So don't be put off thinking, oh, I'm not going to get any more price rises for him, because that doesn't really matter, to be honest. I've never really been a big believer in getting players in for the price rises. You get the players in that you think are going to score well, and if they rise in price at the same time, then fantastic. Salah, you got to get him in, even if it's just for fear of missing out. Liverpool's fixtures look fantastic. Salah's the main guy, I know he didn't score against Crystal Palace, and we're recording this just before the Man United game, but I would have assumed that he scored some points there. And he is just the main person you want in your team. He's probably going to be your captain as well most weeks. And I would think if you're wildcarding, you've probably already got him in. You keep him in your team. If you haven't, you get him in as one of your first picks. And then we've put a Madison in there. He's 8 million and he's got 2 goals and assist already this season in a poor performing Leicester team. I think if he can do it in this team, then he's shown, especially towards the end of last season, he can maintain this form. And I think he's a bit of a differential as well. He's under 10% owned at this moment, and he's scoring points consistently. So I don't see why that can't continue. Leicester have got a bit of a mixed bag of fixtures, but if he can score and they can get that form together, then I think he provides a great option moving forward. Finishing off the team in attack, Jesus and Haaland speak for themselves. They're the form players. I think Ivan Toney, he's an absolute must. Not, I know he had 2 goals disallowed yesterday, which were really close to being allowed. I think if they'd gone in, he'd have scored a hat trick, and everyone would be sat here banging on about him even more than they are already. He's already moved up in price, 7.1. Still get him in. The fixtures look great. His attitude as well when when he had those goals disallowed, I think was just showed a lot that that intensity that he wants, and that attitude moving forward. It just shows a lot as well. So I would definitely get him in my wildcard team. Moving on to the bench, and we've just got a few cheap players just to help get the big hitters in. Williams and Andreas, 4 and 4.5 million. I think they're the players. I know Forest haven't got great fixtures, but I think you can get him in, and he can be your third bench option, and he's your 4 million defender anyway. And if Forest do end up having a good game week, then you can always rotate him in for someone like Rico Henry or Ben White. Andreas is on set pieces. I think he's really good value at 4.5 million. Got 3 bonus points this weekend, and I think he's a potential for a starter as well, depending on fixtures. But I think at 4.5, he's definitely someone worth having on your bench. And rounding out, we've got Jensen. He's on set pieces as well for Brentford. Brentford's fixtures look great. He's 5.1 million, but I would still get him in just for that, corners. You've got someone like Ivan Toney in the box. Brentford scored from a corner yesterday and he got the assist. So I think if you're going to get someone around that price range, he's as good as anyone. So just to finish the video, we've got a few wildcard tips here. My advice would be go for form. So if the players are on form, I wouldn't say they're going to be off form anytime soon. Ride that wave for as long as you can. Go for fixtures as well. You've got to blend it in. You don't, you might have a player that's maybe scored a couple of goals in the first few game weeks, and their fixtures are not looking good. So you have to bear that in mind. There's no guarantee that someone like Zaha is going to continue scoring throughout the rest of the season. If the fixtures aren't good, they're the sort of players that you have to mesh with form and fixtures together. And the final one is go for long term. So you're wildcarding, but you don't have a wildcard team every week. I think if you're getting these players in, you've got to be prepared to have the bulk of them in your team for the next 10 game weeks. You've only really got one free transfer a week unless you've rolled one over. So the actual scope for changes are quite minimal. So if you've got these players in, you have to be comfortable, not wanting to change them in a week or two, which is why, it's good to avoid certain players that you get in and then they don't perform and you're looking at ways to get off them and you're even considering taking a point hit. So get those players in that they're gonna play, and they're gonna maybe have good fixtures moving forward. I think it's worth noting as well that there's a midweek game week after this next weekend in game week 5. So that's something to bear in mind if some of your players are potential rotation risks moving forwards. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Let me know what you think about my wildcard team. Any support on the channel is greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.